This little section was missing from part 2 of Thursday's lesson, and I wanted to show you how to quickly change the shape of this object just by going to the sketch. I want to replace that straight line with another line, and there's a command in here if you right click in your toolbar called replace entity. But before I do that, I need to draw the entity. So I'm going to draw a spline, partly because I want to show you how you can control your spline as well using dimensions. So if I select my dimension command, I need to select the spline, and it'll give me the length of the spline, which is I'm not going to use at the moment. So I can simply select this little control bar, and it'll give me the ability to change the length of that bar, which alters the amount of effect it has. So I'm going to make that point 14.5, and I can also dimension the angle between these two. So let's make that 24 degrees. Oh, that wasn't 24. I want to do the same this side, so click on the spline, change it to 14.5. Make that 24 degrees as well. And then lastly, I simply need to control this point by putting in a dimension in. It's at about 23, so let's make it a little bit larger and see what happens. Okay, great. Right, so now I right click, replace entity. And so it'll ask me on the left-hand side, replace which entity. So you must select an existing entity. And here you can decide whether you want Solidworks to delete that entity or to make it construction. So delete or make construction. I'm going to make it construction so that it's there if I want to go back to it. And then it'll move to the next little dialog box, which is the one you want to replace it with. I want to replace it with that one. And say OK. And if you do it this way, then Solidworks won't get confused and give you lots of angry red marks. It'll just update everything all the way down with that shape. That single update has gone right through to these part files. One command, you've actually updated all your parts, your lower casing or upper casing, whichever parts are affected, it will update in one shot. So very, very efficient. This is the way to do things if you want to be efficient. Right, so let's just go back to that KeyFob, this one here. The reason I wanted to go back to that was I need to show you how to change the direction of this bus. So I'm just going to show, let's hide these other ones. Just my upper casing is showing. And what you'll notice, I hope if you have a look here carefully, I've actually renamed my bosses, so I don't know which is which. I don't have to worry about selecting the wrong one. So I've got your mounting boss thread upper. I just double click on that. Right click, sorry, not double click, right click. Edit it. And all I need to do here is change the direction of the plane, and it'll swap that around. Okay, exit that, and if I go back to the assembly, it will have done it in that place too. So very neat. Drive all your changes through one file. It just like filters down to all the other ones. So what I would suggest for you guys from this point on is that you make use of the solid multi-body part file up to a certain point, and then when you need to introduce new items, put those in separately. That's going to be easier for now. if you want, I can actually make a video on how to locate the new parts into your solid body, multi-body.
Put it down here.
Okay, I'll do that. It's a little bit trickier, but it actually, once you've got it right and everything's in place, everything just becomes so much easier. Right, so I just wanted to show you now how to put in another rib. So I'm in this part here. I'm going to do that. So I need a rib. I want a rib around this button to stop it from moving left to right and back to front. I mean, it can move up and down because it's nice and round, but it can still rotate, and I don't want it to rotate. And you can see I've actually got an interference here in that piece, so I can just go back to this part. I won't do that now. So I just need to measure how far that rib needs to come down. So I'm going to measure using that to this face, and that gives me 2.1. And I want to make it a bit longer, so let's just say ideally we want it to go about as deep as that. So that's 4.9. So maybe about 4.5 will be sufficient. So let's go to the upper casing, which is here, and everything's been sorted out neatly because of my multi-body part file, which I can get a bit irritating about, but I do love it. So I've just put in a plane. No, actually, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to use this plane here as the basis. No, actually, I think that's what I have done here. Right, so this plane here is based off of that landing. Yes, it is. Right, so I've taken that landing where the groove and the lip meet, and I've used that as the basis, and I've said, well, I want my ribs to start a little bit below that landing. So I've put the plane in. I'm going to select the plane, sketch, draw in a square or rectangle, something like this. Okay, so a quick calculation here. My button is 16 millimeters wide, and it's going to have a tolerance of plus or minus 0.1. So the largest it's going to be is 16.1, and I want a 0.1 millimeter gap between the button and the wall. So I need to add 16.1 plus 0.1 plus 0.1, that's 16.3. And then I need to divide my wall by 2. So this is the sort of thing you could do on paper, but I'm doing it in my head. I need to divide the wall by 2, and the wall's going to be about 0.6 millimeters, so 0.3 plus 0.1. So I've got to add 0.4 to 16.6, so 17. We'll get to this, don't worry. But these are the sort of things you are going to have to calculate. 17, and I want this to be square, so I'm just going to put an equal sign, no, parallel, not parallel, equal. And then I just want to make sure that this is vertical with that. And then I need to put in a point. So to locate the square in the center of the circle, all I do is go and select the circle and put a point in the middle. I just select the center, there it is, just mouse over it until that point appears, and then I can just get those two to be coincident, and there we go, all sorted. And because this is going to be a rib, I can put in the radii straight away. In fact, I have to make that say 1. Let's see what happens. Okay, and I also am going to quickly put in a rib like that. Let's leave it like that for now. You could put other ribs in. You should actually put a sort of a locating rib across the back of this thing. Maybe let's do that. Just one like this. That's it. Good enough. Okay, so I've got the framework for my ribs in place. I can select that sketch, just one part of it, and go to rib. I'm going to go mid-plane, and what did I say? 0.9 times 0.66 is about 0.6, I think, or 0.55. Try that. Go doing it, and it's going in the right direction, and I'm going to put my taper in straight away. Say okay, and all done. All right, so that might not be in the right place, so I'm going to go back to this one here, and you can see, in fact, that rib, now that it's put it in, is nowhere near the distance it should be. So a quick measurement. 5.57, so I could make that rib a whole 5 millimeters longer. So I'm recording over the bit in the lesson that dealt with the ribs because it went a little bit wrong, and it's quite instructive just to see why that didn't work. So I'm going to exit the sketch. Before I do that, I'd added in this vertical line and this horizontal line to indicate that I want a rib coming off of this closed square, and another one at the bottom. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but when I tried to move this plane upwards, it would only get to the 0 point mark. And the reason for that is because since I've got an open-ended sketch, it has to go to a certain plane. And if I went beyond that plane, well, it just wouldn't do it because there's no plane to meet anymore. The sketch would be up the limits of what's decided upon. So if we go back into the sketch, and I'm going to make those into construction lines instead of deleting them, and then exit. And I try that same thing again. So now I want to move this sketch upwards. I won't be able to move it using the point like this. I actually have to go into the plane and flip the offset, so or change the offset. So let's make that 4 and just see what happens. And there we go. You can see I've actually been able to make this rib go above the limits of the plane that it started from. That's just because it's a closed sketch. The moment I go and make this into an open sketch again, or reintroduce open sketch elements like these, so I'll make them into proper geometry, it'll give me an error. There we go. There's a nice big red error. Everything that I need to cover. No, there was one other thing. Need to go back to this button. And remember, I had a problem with these ribs and with fully defining the sketch that they were based upon. So if I go into that, I now remember what the problem was. These lines, you have to line up with the center point. So if I select the center point and the line, and I say coincident, you'll see the sketch goes black instantly. So it's one of those oddities in SolidWorks. If you create this kind of sketch in which you put 3 lines around a circle of some sort, it doesn't automatically locate the dependent lines on the center. And that's all you have to do to fully define the sketch. Okay, so what you are going to be doing for me, let's just do this quickly, change that height, sparse extrude. What you're going to be doing for me now is just finishing off this whole exercise and then creating a drawing of it, an exploded view with a bill of materials, which is something we haven't dealt with, but I'll just give you a quick primer in a short video on the subject. And then I want you to fully dimension the top casing and the button. And then we're going to deal with that as the last bit next week. Okay, so let's just quickly change this to 0.95. Save it so that we hopefully don't have problems. I don't have problems. Update this. Oh, hasn't done it enough. Okay, never mind. I think you get the idea. All right, so that's